All right. So, good afternoon, class. Today we are looking at show, don't tell, and we're also looking at using language and dialogue. As we've already discussed, you have looked at Jobel, and we will do some more discussions on Jobel. But let's look at the topic show, don't tell, because that is something that as a writer you will hear very often. And I want to explain what it means. So it is hoped that at the end of this lesson, you will be able to distinguish between showing and telling and when to use each. You will be able to show through, and I will teach you how to show by writing scenes, including significant details, sensory details, using concrete language, attach meaning, and so forth. You'll be able to distinguish between active and passive voice, identify the purpose of dialogue, explain speech markers and things to do and not to do with dialogue, because remember, we are looking not only at the topic of showing and telling, but also language and dialogue, and how to apply the conventions of writing dialogue in fiction. So show, don't tell. That means that it's a writing technique where you want to convey information to your readers through details and actions rather than stating something outright. So when you are told to show, don't tell, you are being asked to use the five senses and physical movements to show your characters' emotions and their thoughts rather than just labeling them. So I have some examples here. For example, if you're telling your story, if you're writing and you write something like Helen was a wonderful woman, always concerned about her children, Charlie and Guinea. You are telling your audience something that is very boring. However, if you were to write instead, when Helen drove her kids to school, instead of dropping them off at the curb, she parked her car, and one hand for each of them, she accompanied Charlie and Guinea to the door of the school. Notice that your readers can now interpret and visualize that. They can interpret, this character cares a lot about her children. She's very concerned about them. So that is why you are often told to show, don't tell. Another example I have is, and this example I really like, if you're telling, you would write, she boiled water. Okay? However, if you are showing that, as you write, instead of writing, she boiled water, which is kind of boring, if you wrote instead, she put the kettle on the stove, now you're just beginning to show. She put the kettle on the stove. Right. So your reader can now visualize somebody putting the kettle on the stove, but you're now beginning to show. If you wrote instead, she filled the kettle from the faucet and hummed till the kettle's whistle cut her humming short, you are definitely showing. So what is happening is your readers can visualize it. They can visualize a woman filling the kettle from the faucet. You can almost hear her humming as she put it on a stove, and her kettle, her humming cut short as the kettle started to whistle. You're definitely showing. And of all these sentences, the best one is if you wrote instead, she boiled water. That sounds like telling, but you continue it. She boiled water in a lidless pot so she could watch the bubbles perk and dance. Now you are showing, but you are also adding characterization and distinction. And the way that we know you are adding characterization, because here this now, this is a woman who have time to sit down and watch bubbles perking and dancing. Obviously, this is a lady of, well, I don't know, luxury. It tells me something about the character. So when you are told all the time as a writer, show, don't tell, this is what they're telling you to do. They're telling you to allow your readers to see and visualize what is happening. They're telling you to use your 5 senses. You are being instructed to allow your readers to interpret what is going on. Another example here is a good time was had by all. That's telling, because you're the author and you're telling your readers everybody had a good time. A good time was had by all. Instead of doing that, you should show it. And Toni Morrison did that in Sula. She wrote, old people were dancing with little children, young boys with their sisters, and the church women who frowned on any bodily expression of joy, except when the hand of God commanded it, tapped their feet. Somebody, the groom's father, people said, had poured a whole pint of cane liquor into the punch. So even the men who did not sneak out the door to have a shot, as well as the women who let nothing stronger than black draught enter their blood, were tipsy. A small boy stood at the vitrola, turning its handle and smiling at the sound of Bert Williams' "Save a Little Dram for Me." So my question is, do you see any differences between showing and telling?
Major differences.
Yes. That
It brings the reader into the story to experience it with you.
Beautiful. Right? And how is it done? How did they bring the reader into the story?
They're very descriptive. They show a lot of action. They show the environment where it's happening. Yeah.
Beautiful. So that's what you are expected to do when you are showing. Notice that another significant difference between telling and showing is the length of the sentence. Mwenda, I've seen you have your hand raised.
I was actually going to say the amount of energy it takes to, written energy it takes to show than tell is significant, because a good time was had by all is extremely efficient, but it doesn't do much for the mind in terms of giving the orientation or the mood or anything like that.
Correct.
So it does take a significant amount of writing energy.
Correct.
To do that.
And notice that as you say, you describe it as writing energy. I just describe it as words. It takes a lot more words to show than to tell. A lot more words. And I keep on reminding you, you're only writing 1,500 words. So that's why I keep on saying to you, you don't have a whole lot of time to be building like Lovelace in his story. He had 6,000 words. You have 1,500. But in that 1,500 words, you must make sure that you show your characters in action, in motion. And that is one of the significant differences. Roma, I saw you wanted to say something.
Miss, can you hear me?
I'm now hearing you, yes.
Oh, that was a while back. Since we were talking about third person, so I wouldn't say it now to interrupt the flow of showing and not telling.
Okay, I thought it was something related to this, showing and telling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. It
Now,
was about
plus-
third person, subjective and limited, but another time maybe.
okay, all right, no problem. You sure you don't want to raise it?
Well, I tend to get the points of view a little bit confused because I find it very difficult to just write through the perspective of one person. And I had read somewhere that you can focus on one, as we saw in the story with the suit, that we can focus on one person,
Mhm.
but still somehow touch on the perspective of a second.
Correct.
So I was, like I just wanted to understand that.
And remember, that story is told from third person. That
Yeah.
story is told in third person limited. So the writer really got into, well, really focused on the guy, right? But he was also able to get into the minds of the woman as well. So he didn't do all the characters in the story. So you can do that. That is an option that is open to you. I am saying to you people all the time, though, you only have 1,500 words to play with, to 2,500. Therefore, you don't have time or energy to do too much with too many characters. In fact, one of the story arcs I saw somebody submit, you had about 6 or 7 characters in your story. That is too much for a short story. Limit your short stories to at least 4 characters. 2 characters or 4 characters, even 4 characters is plenty for a 1,500 word story. But 7 definitely kill some of them off. You cannot enter this short story with 7 characters. And definitely if you are trying to tell a short story with 7 characters, you definitely cannot enter into the mind of 3 of them. Not happening. So you
And
have,
Miss,
go ahead.
can you just go over the difference with the limited and the subjective?
Limited is where you can enter into the mind of one or 2 of the other characters. You limit yourself to that. While subjective is where you align yourself to one character in particular. However, as the writer, you maintain sufficient distance from that character to allow, this is subjective, to allow your readers to see the flaws of that character and to see the gaps in that character and to see, because very often, right, you have a character, your character wants something, they have desire, but your character has a misbelief. And most of the times, your character don't even know what their misbelief is. But if you're writing the story from the third person subjective, the writer would know what the misbelief is and could expose it even without the character knowing that they're being exposed. But the reader will be the ones to pick it up. So third person subjective maintains sufficient distance from the character to allow the readers to see the flaws of the character. And the third person limited allows the writer to enter into the mind of 1 or 2 of the characters in the story, and not just the main character which is what you will find if you use the first person. If you use the first person central narrator, it's only that person's mind you could get into, nobody else's.
Thank you.
No problem. I saw I had class, I don't see you at all when I have my PowerPoint up. And I know I saw 3 hands up, but I don't know who they belong to because I'm not seeing you. So I'm assuming somebody wanted to ask something, but I'm not seeing you. So I don't know if it has been answered or if you want to raise your hand again and just unmute and ask.
Dr. Syriac, good evening. Sorry, I was one of the persons with my hands up. I just wanted to confirm very quickly. I heard you say 1,500 words several times. Is it 1,500 to 2,500?
Yes. 1,500 is to 2,500 for the story itself. Yes. Not
Thank you
more
very
than
much.
2,400. Yeah.
That was my question as well.
Okay. No problem. Right. So it's
Right.
1,500 to 2,500 words.
Miss, I
Yes?
had one further question, but that was on the assignment where you ask people to give the main idea, and you spoke about purpose. Is that purpose linked to theme, or is it strictly main idea, not linked to theme? Because the word purpose confused me a little bit.
Roma, is that Roma I'm talking to?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so what assignment are you talking about? Are you talking
No,
about
the one for
assignment
today, I
1?
was just yeah, the assignment with the arc, I did send an email asking you, but I didn't get a reply. So
Okay, I haven't checked
you know,
email at all, so I
right.
don't remember the context. So where did I ask about purpose?
On the main idea, you asked for the main idea, and you said something about clear and with the purpose, something about the word purpose. And I was wondering, I was trying to fit purpose into the context of the main idea, and I didn't know if you meant the purpose of the story, if that bordered on the theme. So I didn't know if you also wanted theme.
Notice that I have been staying away from team deliberately. Okay?
Okay, so it didn't mean theme. All
No.
right.
And the reason that I am staying away from the idea of theme is the theme is supposed to emerge organically from the story. Very often people start off with theme. I want to tell a story that shows that good overcomes evil. And they're so focused on that they pound that into the story rather than tell a story and that emerges out of it naturally. So at this point, please don't try to knock your story into a theme. Okay, don't force it. And that is the reason I've been staying deliberately away from the talk and the issue of theme. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Jeanette? I'm seeing a hand raised.
Yeah, just a quick question. We were talking a while ago about telling and showing, and you were saying, given the word limit, right, we need to bear that in mind. But so are you recommending a more balanced approach where in some instances we tell, since we would not be able to do all of this showing that we might want?
Okay, well, you will see that I have been saying over and over, show, don't tell, show, don't tell, show, don't tell. And you will be told that all the time in every creative writing class you go to. But the fact of the matter is exactly what you're saying, Jeanette, that there are times when you simply must tell. And there are times when you should try and show more, but there are times when you must tell. And I'm going to tell you when you should tell and tell you when you should show. A lot of it is instinct, but yes, in your story, you will both show and tell, right? So yes, you will, as you say, achieve a balance. I'll tell you when and where. So this is another example. I think you're getting the idea clearly. Gina, can you read telling for me, please? And Denise, if you're here, please read showing.
In addition to the potential risk and the possibility of notoriety, one reason he chose to become a fireman was that he liked the uniform, which his mother also admired, but his father was against the whole idea.
Right. So I don't know if I'm not seeing Denise. So Narissa.
I'm here.
Oh,
I'm
Denise,
here.
yeah, I'm seeing you. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Forgive me, I just had to pull aside to read this because I'm driving, but
Oh
I'm here.
my. No, this is
Showing. He liked everything about the idea of being a fireman, the excitement, the danger, the chance to be a hero or prince. The dress blue uniform, dark serge, a knife-like crease down the center of each pants leg, patent leather visor on the cap, in which a man could see himself reflected. Very fancy, said his mother. His father's eyes were wells of rage and disappointment. He spit onto the floor. He learned to smell the smoke from blocks away. He watched for the sky to begin to lighten, as if from the tip of a rising sun. Each time he felt his heart pound. His own heart filled his chest. It echoed in his ears until they made the final turn into the red-hot, stunning light.
nicely read. So notice that it's saying the same thing as the telling. But in the showing, as somebody said in this class, notice that when you're showing, you engage in the experience. You invite the reader to walk with the character. Notice that what are the things that is done here? One, use of dialogue, or at least, yeah, because we have the mother saying very fancy. Notice descriptions. So you can see things. His father's eyes were wells of rage and disappointment. You use the five senses. He learned to smell the smoke from blocks away. So you're seeing here sight, you're seeing sound, there is the use of smell, sound, it echoed in his ear. Notice that when you're showing, you must use the five senses. You will not be able, may not be able to use all five of them at once, but again, and I think this is the final example I have for you. Narissa, can you read, please? It's very telling. And again, I can't see you. So Scott, I'm assuming you're here. Please read the showing part.
Okay, Miss, so telling is Michael was terribly afraid of the dark.
Right.
And okay, and somebody else read showing? Oh, yeah.
Showing. As his mother switched off the light and left the room, Michael tensed. He huddled under the covers, gripped the sheets, and held his breath as the wind brushed past the curtain.
Nice. So, class, all I'm saying is that when you are writing, it becomes necessary to, it is better to show than to tell. But sometimes you will have to tell. And the difference between showing and telling is simple. Telling explains what we're looking at. We're looking at Michael afraid of the dark. But showing allows us to interpret what we are looking at and engage with the story at an emotional level. And that is what you need to do with your readers. You need to engage them. And how to engage them? You engage them by showing. When in doubt, ask yourself always, am I explaining or am I allowing the reader to interpret? So instead of relying on exposition, which is really telling, when you're showing, you're forced to make something happen that the reader could interpret, whether it's action or emotion that the character takes. So telling, don't tell readers what to think about something. Don't tell readers that Michael is afraid of the dark. Instead, show us how the point of view character sees it, how they see the dark, and how they feel about it. When you do that, you encourage me as the reader to enter into the story. So,
Yes.
yes,
So for creative nonfiction,
yes,
and this is this 1,500 to 2,500 words is not much to actually show. So I am thinking you have to pick probably your main scenario and focus on showing there and tell the rest of the story because they don't have all our words to show
correct.
in the story.
But even in your creative nonfiction, you still have to largely show. And what you have to do in creative nonfiction is you have to create scenes. We call them scenes. Even in fiction, you create scenes. And in every single scene, you must show rather than tell. However, there are times you must tell. And since you raised the issue of creative nonfiction here, I want to address 3 kinds of telling in creative nonfiction, in all fiction, whether it's creative nonfiction or not. There is this lady that I kind of like to follow. Now that you've skipped ahead. Okay, her name is Deborah Smith James. And she distinguishes in, she writes a lot about how to write a memoir. She wrote her memoir called When God Says No. And it's about when her mother died. She describes it as a grief memoir. And in it, she talks about when her mother died and the experience, how it affected her. But more importantly, she talks about how the relationship between herself and her father and how that got affected and reinterpreted. Let me put it that way. But there are several videos about her that I like, but there is one in particular where she talks about the 3 types of telling that you would use, whether you're using it in fiction or nonfiction. And the one she talks about, she calls it name telling. Name telling is what we've been talking about, what I've been just calling telling, right? So when she says, when you name an emotion, Michael was embarrassed or he was afraid of the dark. That is what she calls name telling, because you're naming the emotion. Name telling is one kind of telling that we do in our writing. Sometimes you just have to say, I felt ashamed. Another type of telling is the type that I've been talking about doing, you have to do to engage your reader, is show telling, where you describe the event or the emotion. And the third type of telling that she talks about in creative nonfiction is interior telling. And that is when you get into the mind or the thoughts, where the thoughts are clearly identified. So they're all telling. She calls them different names, and the purpose of each is quite different. So I quite liked how she did that, and how she made that kind of that distinction with telling, with her showing and telling. Yeah. I guess I should, since I told you it, I don't really want to. So let me stop this. I want to show you how she does it. Okay. So I can't do that. Okay. I'm going to share my screen again.
As writers, we're often advised
Just
to
now.
show, don't tell. And that is great advice. As writers, we're
Okay, let me just wait a little bit. I'm going to share my screen again with you. And this is her talking about showing and telling. I kind of like how she did this. I've listened to a lot of stuff, and I think she gives a very excellent explanation. So share my screen. Right. Okay. So tell me if you can, are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Let me know if you can hear as well. Okay.
As writers, we're often advised to show, don't tell. And that is great advice. But we also find that there's a problem. We come to a point where showing isn't enough. We do need to tell. And what do we do about that? How do we remedy it? How do we fix it? So in this video, we're going to look at what is the difference between show and tell, why as writers we get advised to show, don't tell, and what happens when we find that that in itself is not enough. Hello, I'm Brenda, and here on my YouTube channel, I love to help you to write your memoir. The first question, why as writers are we advised to show, don't tell? It comes down to two things. One is to actually mature in your writing. Very often as beginner writers, we start to just tell our story. And we just tell it as though we're sitting at a dinner table and we have the audience at our mercy and we're just telling them everything we want to tell them. And everybody is just like so bored, wishing that you would just keep it short, liven it up, and tell them the essential parts. And that's what we do as writers. We get so caught up in just telling our story, we bore the reader. And we get advised to move from telling to showing in order to bring interest and vigor and variety to our writing and to the reader, to our audience. Primarily, we get told to show when it comes down to emotion, because very often we will state our emotion. We will state, I was furious, I was embarrassed, I was ashamed, I was delighted, I felt shy. So we state those emotions when really we could make it much more interesting by whipping out of our toolbox, showing, to describe, to give description to the action, to what happened. And that brings in variety, that makes it much more tangible for the reader. And we don't have to then say to them, I was embarrassed. We can write it in such a way that they actually see our embarrassment. So let me give you an example. I was a shy child, often blushing, often embarrassed, often intimidated. So I know all about embarrassment. And so I could, in my writing, have written when I was a child about an incident and just say, I was embarrassed. Now I could, instead of that, describe that moment, to take the reader into that moment. And so I could rather write that moment in this way. I could say, I don't know, I stammered. I dropped my gaze and stared at the blue mosaic on the floor. That depicts for you my moment of embarrassment. I don't have to state it. I don't have to name it. I can describe it. I can show it. It makes it way more interesting. And the reader knows what that depicts. They understand that. You've described it in a way that they understand in that moment you were embarrassed. Does that mean that we always do showing and we have no place for telling? No, it does not. It means variety. Remember, you as a writer, you have a toolbox, and in this toolbox you have different tools you can use. So in this section we have the grammar, we have nouns, we have verbs, we have adjectives, we have different ways in which we can use language. In this section we have the punctuation and the different forms of punctuation we can use. And in another section we have length of sentences, paragraphs, size of chapters. All of that, believe it or not, plays a part in how you tell your story and how you structure it. And in this other corner, we have telling. And in telling, we have 3 types of telling that are important to know. Name telling, show telling, and then a third one that actually takes your writing to a whole new level. And we're going to touch on that one soon. But for now, let's get sorted in our mind, name telling and show telling. So here's another example I'm going to take out of my own book. My book is called When God Says No. It's a grief memoir, and it recounts the story of the passing of my mother, which was a very difficult experience for me. In this part that I'm going to describe to you and show you the difference between name telling and show telling, I'm going to refer just to a simple scene, because it doesn't always have to be pivotal, life-changing scenes, just a simple ordinary scene of arriving at the hospital in Johannesburg. I could very simply describe the arrival in 3 sentences. We arrived at the hospital, we parked underground, and we took the elevator to the 11th floor. That is name telling. That's telling you what I did, naming things, naming the event. Now let's take you through rather the whole scene of show telling and how we can do show telling. My brother drove to the left, away from the entrance, turned right, and then right again into the parking garage. Weeds pushed up through the cement cracks and overran the garden bed. A machine dispensed a parking ticket. He retrieved it, and we drove into the blackness of the underground parking, which felt cool after the warmth of the winter sun. Now there you have 3 sentences, different lengths of sentences, different ways of using the sentences, and all I've done in those 3 sentences is tell you how we drove into the parking area, and it's a little bit about the surrounding area. That's all I've done. We haven't yet got to the elevator or even the escalator that took us up to the elevator. We haven't yet got to the 11th floor. We've just arrived in the parking. Now, why do we do this? Why do we do show telling versus name telling? Show telling brings the reader into the experience. It actually helps them to perhaps be in the back seat of the car as we arrive at the hospital. It draws the reader in. They're both external writing, but show telling is much more visual. It also slows the story down. Do you see how in 3 sentences I have actually just arrived at the parking, whereas my other 3 sentences in name telling, the story has gone very quickly and we've moved very quickly, which tells you name telling has its place. It has its place for transitions. It has its place for moving the story along, but it doesn't have its place for taking the reader right into that moment. And that's what you're wanting to do. You want to take the reader right into that moment. Now, why do we want to do that? It's to show them the depth of a particular emotion, or you use it to build intrigue, you build towards a climax. Now remember, I've started the book arriving to see my sick mother. I've flown in from another country. I haven't seen her yet. I haven't seen her for a long time. I'm anticipating seeing her. I don't really know how ill she is. I have these emotions building up inside of me. And in slowing the story down, in building towards that moment when I see or hear my mother, where I approach her, I am now building that anticipation even for the reader. I'm taking the reader along on this experience of arriving to see my sickly mother. And that's how you use your show telling. You use it as a tool in your toolbox to heighten the tension, to illustrate a point, to bring the reader right into the moment, for variety, for interest. And use show telling to develop the senses when you want to take the reader into the sensory experience of your story. So let's look at that third element that I've been telling you about, that third telling, which is a crucial point of telling. It's the telling that Mary Karr, in her book, The Art of Memoir, says makes any book rereadable. And by rereadable, she says, translate as great. So if you want a great memoir, the third element you do need to bring into your telling is interiority, interior telling. Now, I'm going to deal with that much more in a second video, so watch out for that video, but we are going to look at it, just touch on it in this video. When we move from name telling to show telling, we're going to reach a point where we're going to realize, but hang on, this isn't enough. I can't just show them the scene. If I'm going to build my theme, if I'm going to leave little nuggets of truth along the way for people to find, if I'm going to lead them in the direction I want to take them, I need to bring them a little bit on side. I need to explain some things to them so they know what's going on in the scene. If I just leave it as a scene-driven writing, if I just describe the scene but don't actually add this interiority, explain what the scene actually means, because to the outsider it could look something quite different, they're going to lose the thrust of my story. So then we think we need to go back to name telling, but no, we don't. We go to interior telling. And those are our three types of telling: name telling, show telling, and interiority, interior telling. Interiority is going into the narrator's head. The thoughts, the ideas, the things going through the narrator's head that you do not know about, would not know about, if they did not explain it to you, if they did not use it as a tool to take you into a deeper understanding of the story. And this now is the difference between external writing and internal writing. There's a lot more to unpack on interiority, a lot. So I'm going to do that in another video. If you're interested in my book or The Art of Memoir, I have got links below for you to click on to learn more about both those books. So keep writing, there's a lot to learn. I'll see you in that next video.
So, did that explain to you not only distinguishing between show telling and name telling, as she calls it, but when to use it? Hello?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Right. So when it comes to showing, when do you use it? When is it used? Is that Racine?
Yes, Racine speaking.
Yes. When should you use show telling?
In scenes.
When what are you trying to achieve in scenes? When you want what to happen?
When you I guess with the build up, you take
Correct.
Okay.
Right. So when you are trying to go for a build up, you must use you show telling, you must show. However, when you wish to do what we call a change up, you want a transition, you use what she calls name telling. Name telling is really giving a summary of thing. So let me give you an example. So I share my screen again. Okay. So let me show you an example. Okay, so I listen to a lot of this lady's tapes. She makes a lot of sense.
Miss,
Yes,
just for clarity, show telling is showing, right?
correct.
Okay.
Okay, so let me give you an example. I had a nice example. Where is it? Oh, this is it. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, Oshin, are you there? I thought I
Yes,
just.
miss, I'm here.
Okay,
Yes,
can
miss.
you read showing, please?
Yes, miss. Showing Mr. and Mrs. K were not old. They had the fair, brownish skin of the true Martian, the yellow coin eyes, the soft musical voices. Once they had liked painting pictures with chemical fire, swimming in the canals in the seasons when the wine trees filled them with green liquors, and talking into the dawn together by the blue phosphorus portraits in the speaking room. They were not happy now. The Martian Chronicles, Ray Bradbury.
Right, so that's the writer of these Martian Chronicles. Now, Mr. and Mrs. K were not old. Is that showing or telling?
Telling.
Right, that's telling. From they had the fair brownish skin to room. Is that showing or telling?
Showing.
Showing.
That is showing. They were not happy now. Is that showing or telling?
Telling.
Good. So notice that there is a mix of showing and telling. Show when creating a build-up. So they had a fair brownish skin, they had yellow coin eyes, soft musical voices. You're building up, okay? When you are telling, tell in the shortest, most matter-of-fact manner. Mr. and Mrs. K were not old. I'm telling you that. End of story. Keep it short, matter-of-fact, to the point. They were not happy now, okay? But you tell when you're about to change up, meaning when something is changing. So they were not old, and then you show they were not happy. You're telling that because there is about to be a change in what you are going to be saying next. Tell, also another time when you could tell is when the character is voicing his or her own opinion about something, or they're letting their current moods and beliefs color their perspectives. So I repeat, there is a mix of both showing and telling in reality. There must be more showing than telling in reality, but you will have to use both of them. You just have to know when to use which one. So I'm telling you that use telling, use showing when you want to build up, when you're in the climax, when somebody said at the beginning and asked the question, you have very few, you have actions in your creative nonfiction as well as in your fiction. You will have the most significant scenes, like for example, when there is the inciting incident early, that should be something that should be shown. When you reach the climax or the crisis moments, that should be something that should be shown. Those are the areas where you will most likely have to show in your story. How to show? Well, there are 5 things you need to do to show. 1, write in scenes. Let the reader see what is happening whenever you're describing an important action. And that is why I say the climax, the crisis, that's an important action. So, write in scenes. Make sure that's a scene. When you're writing in scenes, introduce dialogue or perhaps interior monologue. It depends on what is happening. And it depends on, that is the third kind of telling that Deborah lady talked about. So when you're writing in scenes, you may introduce dialogue, but most important thing about writing in scenes, use the 5 senses. Don't focus only on what can be seen. Focus also on what can be heard, what can you smell, what you can touch, what you can taste, what you can, I can't remember, I left out one, getting old. When you're writing in scenes, use images that the readers can relate to in describing situations and emotions. So that's one way of showing, writing in scenes. Another way of showing is focus on significant detail. You do not have to tell every single thing about if your character got into the car and they drove from my village to Port-of-Spain, to the capital city. You don't have to write how they held the clasp the handle of the car, they open the door, they put the clutch, they think they Focus only on significant detail. These things that are specific, definite, concrete, and focused on particular detail, not everything. Do not, we call it, don't take your character, your readers through passport control. You know, when you're going through passport and you're going through how every little detail thing, they will be bored. So hold your reader's attention by being specific, definite, and use concrete language that is focused on particular details. A detail is definite and concrete when it appeals to the senses. It should be seen, heard, smelled, taste, and touch. I want to talk about concrete a bit because in reading some of your arcs, and some people submitted not only the arc, they started writing the story. And I read some of what people presented as part of their story. And some of it is not concrete. You did not use concrete language. You used some rather vague language. We went to the park. Really? We were in the park for a while. That is not specific language. How long is a while? An hour? Half an hour? 2 days? You set up camp? I need specific. That is one way of showing. So you have to be specific. You have to be definite. You have to be concrete. I am coming to that. Third thing, provide sense details, detail that matter. Again, I'm coming back to dealing sense details, that's the 5 senses, and focus on the details that matter. I want you to think again. I hope you've read it by now. Sneaky snake. That student focused on the details that matter. She described the snake admiring himself in the mirror, and the girl, you know, she didn't describe every single thing about the girl and the snake and on her, the tattoo and whatever. Focus on details that matter. Everything else, leave it out. It's not important. And as a fiction writer, you must say what you mean, but also mean more than what you say. Another way of being, giving concrete, significant detail is, a detail is concrete if it appeals to the five senses. And it's significant if it also conveys an idea or a judgment or both. So you must attach some kind of value or meaning to what you say. For example, if you write the windowsill was green, yes, that is very concrete. We can see it. But if you write the windowsill was shedding flakes of fungus green paint, that is not only concrete, but it also conveys an idea that the paint is old. It suggests a judgment that maybe the people living in this house, they're poor. It is suggesting that the color is ugly and making a judgment. So it is not enough just to write a sentence that is concrete. The sentence must suggest something underneath. So that's the fifth way of showing, attaching meaning and value to what you say. No amount of concrete details in the world will move your readers unless it also suggests meaning and value. Look at this sentence. Terry Landon, a handsome young man of 22, was 6'4" and broad-shouldered. He had medium-length blonde hair and a natural tan which set off the blue of his intense and friendly long-lashed eyes. Yes, that is concrete information. They use the five senses. But this is a poor description because it fails through lack of significance. No value arises out of the images themselves. So it is not a good description at all. There is no meaning or value attached. The writer is rather trying to forced to provide judgments for people, for readers to like Terry. Not a good idea. So I repeat, how do you show? There are 5 things you do. 1, you write in scenes. 2, you focus on significant details. 3, you provide sense details that matters, meaning you focus on the 5 senses, but only on a detail that matters. 4, you give concrete, significant details. And 5, you attach meaning and value. When we talk about concrete detail, I'm talking about being very, very specific in your writing. Avoid abstract ideas. Avoid, let me share my screen again. Stop sharing. Share my screen again. What is it? Do we have any questions here?
Yes, Miss, I have a question about this character.
Yeah.
Of when to draw the line between what is you consider irrelevant and what you need to do to showcase your character, whether it's physical or emotional. So yeah, so to give the reader an idea of what this person who's your main character looks like and what his mindset is, you have to do some description. But I mean, I get you want to show it, but there's a little bit of a challenge to figure out what is meaningless and what is necessary, you know.
Yeah, I know. A lot of it is, okay, so it depends a lot on what your story is, and two, what is your purpose? What is your purpose? Why are you choosing to? Remember, as a writer, you are the one you're directing your reader's gaze to particular details. But you, as a writer, you've decided what is the particular details that your reader should focus on. Why you have chosen that particular detail, and I'm saying that I'm thinking of, again, Sneaky Snake, that is your decision. But that decision is determined by several things. One, specificity, we call it. You are directing your reader's attention to a specific object or a specific character or a specific action. And sometimes it is just instinct, knowing what to focus on. Sometimes it is determination that you make in advance. I want to share. I don't want to do the whole of this video, okay? But this one touches on what I'm trying to suggest, to talk about when it comes to specificity and concreteness. Let me try and share my screen again. How do I do this? So, where are you? Okay. Share. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, miss.
Okay. So let me know in the chat if you're able to hear, because I'm not sure if you are hearing what's going on. This is also a person I have a lot of time for. I follow Readsy platform.
Hey guys, it's Shaylin and I'm here today with another video. So today I'm following up on what I think was the last video, assuming I'm posting these in the order that I think I'm going to post them, which was a video on Show Don't Tell, and I'm going to be talking about specificity. So originally I had scripted these out to be one video, so I decided to split it into two, make it a little more digestible, because Show Don't Tell and specificity are very related concepts. Specificity is often a means to showing, but they're not necessarily the same, and as much as I talk about specificity, I think I talk about it in every video, like, oh, Shaylin's talking about specificity. Fire is hot, water is wet. I've never actually made a video just on specificity on this channel. This pairs very intrinsically with the Show Don't Tell video, so I will leave that in the cards and in the description if you want to check that out. They're very related, but today I'm going to be talking specifically about using specific details, cutting abstract or vague language and replacing it with specificity, and walking through a bit of a longer example. But I also think it is, and I've said this before and I kind of stand by it, the key to good writing. When I understood how to use specificity, and it's not a very difficult concept, like you guys will probably be able to apply this if you're not already immediately, like it's actually very easy to apply. The quality of my writing shot up immediately because it's very easy to implement this, and it really, really does improve the richness and the uniqueness of your story. It takes your story from something very vague and kind of not unoriginal, but non-specific to itself. The main thing that you want to be on the lookout for in your writing is vague or abstract language. So vague language are non-specific words, indefinite words, And a lot of this time it's words with some or thing in them. So things, something, sometime, somewhere. These are very vague words. They don't really tell us anything. For example, sorry, I'm looking at my computer. We spent some time at the park. How much time did you spend at the park? Like, was it an hour? Was it 15 minutes? Was it 5 days? Like, did you camp out there? I have no idea based on this sentence. I picked up some things at the store. What things? You could have picked up things needed to make a nice dinner, or you could have picked up things to murder a man and hide the body. It was somewhat cold out. How cold is somewhat exactly? I have no idea. This depends a lot on personal opinion. Like, maybe what I find cold is not cold at all for you if you live in Antarctica, but maybe you live somewhere really warm. I'm Canadian. Maybe what I find kind of warm and a nice day is freezing for you. Like, this is so indefinite, we really have no idea. So you really want to be on the lookout for these kinds of weak, vague words, and really only use these kinds of words very intentionally. But if you can specify more, you really want to be on the lookout for these vague words. So that's the first thing to look for when being more specific. The other thing to look for is abstract language. Unlike vague words, which we don't know what it's referring to, with an abstract word, we do know what it's referring to, but it has no sensory appeal. So this is ideas, emotions, states, qualities, concept. So for example, freedom, that's an idea. Sadness, that's an emotion. Tired, that's a state. Pretty, that's a quality. Math, that's a concept. I can say sadness to you and you probably picture something, you maybe even feel something, but it's probably different from what I feel. And obviously, we both have an understanding of what sadness is, but what we're gonna picture, what we're gonna feel, what we're gonna remember is different. When I say pretty, we're also all gonna think of different things. We know what the word pretty means. You know, it means aesthetically pleasing to look at, but what you find pretty might be different from what I find pretty. You also want to be on the lookout for abstract language in your work and trying to cut that and replacing it with concrete language, which is much more specific and is more so a form of showing. Concrete language, on the other hand, is anything that we can experience with the 5 senses. I have said before, and I've heard it said before, that a concrete word is something you can punch, but that's not entirely accurate. Like, that's a way to think of it, but it's not entirely true, because I mean, there are even physical objects that I can't punch, like a raindrop. I don't know how I would punch a single raindrop, but it's still concrete. And there are things like, for example, a sound, like the sound of a drum. Okay, obviously there are lots of different kinds of drums, but like, we know what that sounds like. It's still concrete because we can experience it with one of our senses, even though I cannot punch the sound of a drum. Here are some abstract sentences. The painting is beautiful. I guarantee that no one watching this video just pictured the same painting, because I didn't tell you anything about what the painting looks like. I only told you that it was beautiful, and that's a very subjective quality. We had fun at the park. You could have chased some squirrels, maybe that's fun for you. You could have played jump rope, maybe that was fun for you. I don't know, maybe you like kidnapped someone, maybe that was fun for you. I have no idea what your idea of fun is. You could have played capture the flag, you could have been day drinking. I really don't know. On the other hand, in a concrete sentence, I could say the painting of the tree is red and gold. So obviously this isn't a fantastic sentence. It's still not that specific, but we know it's a painting of a tree and it's red and gold. This is concrete and it's objective. Concrete language is much more objective. Abstract language is very subjective. Saying the painting was beautiful gives you no idea what the painting looks like. Similarly, we rode the Ferris wheel and ate mini donuts at the amusement park. I guess I made it an amusement park here and it was just a park. And the first one, that's how vague it was. I just said park. Instead of saying that we had fun, I described things that objectively are fun. Like, who's not having fun eating mini donuts? No one. That's an objectively fun thing to do. And if you disagree with me, I don't know, it's kind of messed up of you. So that's kind of like what concrete versus abstract language looks like. But a lot of the time when we're applying specificity, what you're going to find in your writing is language that's actually, it's specific enough. For example, in that sentence about the tree, if the painting of the tree is red and gold, this is still actually quite vague because we don't know what kind of tree it is. We don't know what kind of painting it is. Like, is it a watercolor painting? Is it an oil painting? I have no idea what kind of tree. I guess I'm imagining it as a maple tree because it said it was red and gold and they get very colorful like that. Truly no idea.
I find I'm not doing all of this, but I find her example is one of the best things that she did. So I'm trying to move to her example. If I could figure out how to move this along. Oh, no, 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 no. I want to, please.
Hey guys, it's Shaylin and I'm here today with another video. So today I'm following up on what I think was the last video, assuming I'm posting these in the order that I think I'm going to post them, which was a video on Show Don't Tell, and I'm going to be talking about...
How do I move this along?
Hey guys, it's Shaylin.
Okay.
You have to just say the cursor and carry it straight down to the point, I guess.
But it's
I mean,
not
it's not
allowing,
allowing you.
so I'm wondering if I should just go on line itself, which I think I might have to do. Give me a minute to go online because it's not allowing me and I don't understand why. Okay, so let me specificity and topic package. Give me a minute. Let's see. Okay. Video. Okay, I found it. Let me go on down.
Hey guys, it's Shaylin and I'm here today with another...
Okay. So I have her.
I have written out a longer example.
So I'm going to share my screen again. Where are you? Are you seeing my screen at all? Hello? Class?
No, we're not seeing it,
Not
miss.
yet, miss. Not yet.
Not seeing it.
So let's see. Are you seeing it now?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So this is an excellent example of vague and concrete language and specificity. Okay. Let me know that you can hear.
Example. So this example is quite long, and I purposely made this paragraph very, very bad. And the reason this paragraph is bad is for a lot of reasons, but the main one in this case is because it's very, very vague. So I wrote this bad version of the paragraph, which I will read to you. And then I wrote a better version where I specified it, and then I wrote an even better version. So you can see the really vague version and then kind of the middle ground and then see it bumped up to like that next level. So let's start by looking at the bad version. The weather that day made me happy. It was very cheerful. Even though my relationship with my sister Caroline was strained, we went to some events. We wanted to feel free that day. A few times she disappointed or embarrassed me, but for the most part we had fun. She won some stuff from a carnival game. I was trying to be nice, so I bought her dinner. When we got home, our mother was very angry with us for staying out so late. This upset us and we realized we weren't as happy as we'd been pretending to be all day. This is a very vague paragraph. Looking back at this, the weather that day made her happy. How so? Was the weather cheerful? What did that look like? Why was their relationship strained? What kind of events did they go to? Why do they want to feel free and what does that mean for them? A few times she disappointed her. How many times exactly? How did she disappoint or embarrass her? How did they have fun? What did she win from the carnival game and what game was it? She bought her dinner. What kind of dinner? Mother was angry. What did that look like? This upset us. How did they react? So in the next version of the paragraph, I kind of specified a lot of these vague bits. It's still not impeccable writing. There's still a lot missing, but this version I think is substantially better. So here's the middle ground version. The weather that day was energizing and bright. The sun was shining. Even though my sister Caroline and I had been fighting a lot recently, we went to a fair. We wanted to feel grown up and unrestrained by our parents' rules. Caroline embarrassed me when she made a scene after losing a carnival game and disappeared for an hour after lunch. But the rest of the day we went on rides. She won some stuffed animals in a beanbag toss. I didn't want to fight with her, so I bought her a corn dog. When we got home, our mother yelled at us for staying out so late. This made Caroline cry, and I just retreated to my room, realizing we weren't as happy as we'd been pretending to be all day. So this is better. This is clearly much better. We get a lot more specific details. We know what kind of weather it is. It's a bright day. We know why the relationship is strained. They'd been fighting a lot recently. Caroline embarrassed her by making a scene. The prize she won was a stuffed animal. For dinner, she bought her a corn dog. Their mother yelled at them. So it's more specific, but I still have a lot of questions. So for example, they'd been fighting a lot. What had they been fighting about? We wanted to feel unrestrained by our parents' rules. What rules? It says Caroline embarrassed me. That's telling. We shouldn't have to say that Caroline embarrassed her. If we get the context of the scene, it should be clear that she felt embarrassed. She won some stuffed animals, some, that's a vague word. Here's the final version, which still isn't incredible, but it has a lot more specific details, and you will notice it is a lot longer. So here's the final version. I woke up that morning to birds chittering outside my window. The sun gleamed through the blinds, and outside the sky was a robin egg blue. The night before, Caroline had insisted it was my turn to take out the garbage, even though I knew it was her turn, and she ended up throwing one of her shoes at me. It was a Doc Marten, too. She'd aimed it right at my face, though I dodged it, and the heel dented my wall. We've been blaming our parents. They still nagged us for not eating all our greens and hovered to read our texts from over our shoulders. We wouldn't have had the fight at all if they weren't so insistent about following their chores schedule. Not mentioning the previous night's incident, Caroline and I took the bus downtown to an amusement park. Within the first hour, Caroline threw a rubber duck at a carnie's face when she lost a game of balloon pop and only got fourth prize. I ducked into the concession stand, but lost her in the crowd for an hour. After we split a bag of kettle corn for lunch, we waited in line for the Ferris wheel and went on the roller coaster 7 times. By the time it was evening, Caroline won a stuffed polar bear in a game of beanbag toss. She was gloating her win to the 12-year-old boy she'd won against, and I bought her a corn dog to distract her. When we got home, our mother yelled at us for staying out past our curfew. Caroline started to cry and buried her face in the giant stuffed polar bear's fluffy belly. I retreated to my room and stared out the window, the sky a hazy black with no visible stars. I could hear Caroline cry through the walls. I thumbed through the calendar on my wall and counted how many days it would be until I could move out. 114. This gives us a much richer depiction of not only the events but also the characters. We get a much clearer understanding of the relationship between the sisters, which really is what this is about. You know, in the context of the story, which I don't know what story this is, this is random, is it that important that they went to the amusement park and went on some rides? Like, those details aren't really that important. What this excerpt is getting at is trying to show us the relationship between the sisters and how they relate to each other. From this last excerpt here, that the main character is trying really hard to make things work with her sister, but her sister's a bit of a loose cannon, and it's not helped by how strict their parents are, and even though she's putting in so much effort, at the end of the day, she's just left thinking about when she can leave and not see them again. We get the sense that the main character feels smothered by her family, she feels a little trapped, she feels like a lot of responsibility is falling on her, and maybe that's starting to bubble over, hence why they're fighting over who takes out the garbage. Maybe the main character feels like all the responsibility is always falling on her because her sister's such a loose cannon. We can gain so much more about the characters, and also just from a visual aspect, from an interest of reading aspect, it's much more interesting. You know, like the description of their fight saying what they fought over, and then it, you know, devolves into her throwing a shoe, and the main character specifies that it was a Doc Marten, as if that makes a lot of difference. Like, it wasn't just a shoe, like she didn't throw a flip-flop at me, like she threw a combat boot, and like it dented the wall. Like, these are all specific details that we can picture. It's a bit voicier. The whole thing is a lot richer. It's not amazing writing. This isn't the best thing I've ever written by any means, but I think for the sake of this example, it does showcase what specific writing looks like, especially compared to that first example where there was nothing to gain. We couldn't gather anything about the relationship. All we could really get from that first version, really the only characterizing emotional detail we got was when she said at the end, we realized we weren't as happy as we've been pretending to be all day. And I guess that little bit about them saying they wanted to feel free. We don't really get anything to relate to from the characters, and we also don't even know what it means for them. Like, you want to feel free, like, from what? And like, why? And like, what's freedom mean to you? I hope that longer example gives an idea of what specificity looks like. It really is a very easy technique to implement that can really punch up your writing. If you struggle just with general imagery and feeling like you struggle to write, nice descriptions, adding a layer of specificity can really punch up your descriptions without feeling too fanciful even. That is really all I've got to say on specificity. I hope this was helpful. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, you can always send me an ask on Tumblr, and I'll see you in another video. Bye.
Was that helpful? Hello?
Yes, it was.
Alone
I
in the
see somebody
woods.
asked for
Very insightful, Miss.
Just how I want to, okay, no, I don't know what I'm doing. Yes, so let me hear, can I have some feedback from you about the video? I saw somebody ask about the links. My good people, right? I don't know how to do these things. I don't know how to share the links with you. I was actually planning on putting the video in the e-classroom, but there are so many videos from these two particular ones that I shared today. This Shailene Wrights and that Deborah person. If you can, go in and look at a lot of their videos because their videos will be of relevance to you. I don't know how to share the link. I don't know how to do it, to tell you the truth.
Miss,
Yes.
the two videos you just shared, I found them on YouTube, so I'll send it to the WhatsApp group.
Right. And follow, so Oshin will Oshin found it. Oshin could find things very quickly. Yes.
We'll say the
There are
hallelujah first, huh?
lots. Yeah, there are
Miss,
lots.
Miss, I have audio visual, so when I go home, I re-listen them. So that's why I do that.
Yeah, and you wouldn't believe how many videos I look through before I find one that I think that will speak to you and will make the points. So the point I'm trying to make is, and I'm trying to answer the person who asked the question just before I started showing the video about how will you know what is specific? You will see, as she explained, it depends on what your purpose is. Remember, the purpose of the writer in that excerpt that she used, in that example, was to show the relationship between the sisters. So you as the writer have to think about, what do I want to achieve in this scene? What is my purpose? And depending on your answer to that, then you will know what you should be specific about and what you should emphasize. So I cannot stand here and tell you what will be specific to your story because I don't know what you are trying to achieve and what is your purpose and what you are using the scene to highlight. Yeah? But look at those two videos. Oshina is going to send you the link and look at, because the people who are doing creative nonfiction, look at a lot of that Deborah Smith-James videos. She has things on all kinds of things to do with writing memoirs. I think she's an excellent teacher. She teaches extremely well. And she doesn't advertise too much as many of the others try to do. And this Reedsy girl, she works for Reedsy. This is a writing platform that I kind of follow. I've been following them for many years. And they sometimes have these online free invitations to writers to join them so that the agent will be talking about something and you can join and listen in. Of course, it's all about, they really would like you to employ them to help you write, but I'm not doing that, right? But that's the point of the exercises. I find a lot of their videos very helpful. So, any other questions? I'm almost finished. So I've answered the question, so we've done distinguishing between showing and telling. I told you how to show using through writing scenes, significant details, sensory details, using concrete language, attaching meaning and value. I want to move on to the issue of language. Now, we've covered how to show, and just one thing before I move into language, there are some areas where, as a writer, as the author, where you will always be tempted to tell. Rather than show. When you try to tell what happened before the story began, so sometimes you will go into flashback and you're trying to tell backstory, you may be tempted to tell. I am suggesting that you look at the story Crazy Mary and see how the writer did that. What the writer did what many of you are doing for the creative nonfiction. He started the story at the crisis. And in the crisis moment of Crazy Mary bent down, raised up her clothes, showed her bottom to everybody in the village, and then she ran off. So when she bent down and showed her bottom, that is where he started the story. And then that writer went back into flashback in that story. And the way he did it, it does not look or sound like he shows rather than tells. Let me see how to do this. So where's Crazy Mary? I had put it aside for you. Crazy Mary. This is a story written by Claude McKay. I want to make this bigger. Okay. I'm going to share my screen again. Why is this coming up? Okay, so share my screen. Where are you? Oops. I shouldn't have done that. Give me a minute. I just lost my PowerPoint again. Creative writing. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again with you. More. Share. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, miss.
Yes, we are.
Nice. So this is the Crazy Mary story. We're not going to do the whole thing. In fact, we're not doing most of it. This story starts off with, it actually starts and you don't realize it until you come lower down to the story, to the crisis moment. And you realize at the start of the story, you don't realize that they're starting at the crisis. Can I have a reader, please? A volunteer to just read very quickly.
Crazy Mary. Miss Mary startled the village for the first time in her strange life that day, when she turned herself up and showed her naked self to them. Suddenly, the villagers realized that after many years of harmless craziness, something was perhaps dangerously wrong with Mary. But before they could do anything about it, she settled the matter herself. For a long time, she had been accepted as an eccentric village character. Ever since she had recovered from her long, sad illness and started going around the village with a bunch of roses in her arms. Before that, she had been the sewing mistress of the village school. She was a pretty, young, yellow woman then. Her parents, following the custom of those peasants with the little means, had sent her to a sewing school in Gingertown. She had gone away in short frocks, with her hair down and a bright bow pinned to it. When she started for good, after 3 years, she was in long skirts with her hair up in what the villagers called a Chinese bump. Her father bought her a singer, finer than those of the other peasant women, a footworking one similar to that owned by the village tailor. She subscribed to Welland's Ladies' Journal and the Home magazine, and opened a little school in her home for girls to learn to sew, and design, and cut. Her girls called her Miss Mary, and if his superior folk, such as the person. Go on, miss. Yeah, scroll down.
Uh-huh.
Scroll down a minute down, miss. Thank you.
Okay.
Her girls call her Miss Mary, and your few superior folk, such as a parson and family, the schoolmaster, and the postmistress, call her Miss Dean.
Okay, thanks,
The
Nigel.
schoolmaster's wife.
Thanks, Nigel. Well
Okay, no
read.
problem.
So what I want to show you is this. Notice that this started at the climax, at the crisis moment of the story, and then the writer goes back. For a long time, she had been accepted as eccentric, and then goes back again in the third paragraph before she had been the sewing mistress of the village school. And they go right back to when she was young and pretty and so forth and so forth. So, but even in going back and in flashing back to how she was in the past, she is being shown. You are seeing her. Now, I want to show you that we know, you don't know until the end that she started the story at the crisis. Because notice the first paragraph. Miss Mary started the village for the first time in her strange life that day when she turned herself up and showed her naked self to them. Suddenly, the villagers realized that after many years of harmless craziness, something was perhaps dangerously wrong with Mary. But before they could do anything about it, she settled the matter herself. How did she settle it? It's not until you read the all of this bacchanal here about the scandal that she ended up with the schoolmaster and whatever. All of that is flashback, but it is written as if it had been, as if it happened. It is all shown, okay? So she ended up in a bacchanal, and then she had to leave the village, and then she came back to the village, and when she came back as a different person. Miss Mary got rid of her shoes and went about barefooted like a common peasant girl. Notice the change? So there was some bacchanal, some confusion, some scandal that Miss Mary ended up with. She had to leave the village, and then she came back. And when she came back, she started walking about barefooted. Every day she gathered her flowers, and there was always plenty of red flowers, hibiscus, poinsettias, dragon's blood. And she had a strange way of holding the bouquet in her arm as if she were nursing it. Sometimes she talked to herself, but never to anybody. And when anyone tried to talk to her, she answered with a cracked little laugh. So Miss Mary clearly went off the rocks. Her people kept her clean, and the village folk settled down into familiarity with her as a strange character. Nobody thought she should be sent to the madhouse, for she was harmless. As the months turned into years, the village changed schoolmasters again, and even the parson was called to a church in a little town where he earned more money. The village had long ceased from wondering about the disappearance of the schoolmaster, and Freshie had 3 children. Freshie was one of the girls in the school who she ended up in a bacchanal with the schoolmaster. You could read it on your own, right? So that's why they mention in Freshie. So the village had ceased from wondering about the disappearance of the schoolmaster, and Freshie had 3 children for 3 different black bucks before she was 19. Then one day the schoolmaster returned. So after years, he came back. He had been away in Panama. He was a changed man after being so long free from semi-religious duties. All that is not important right now. She saw the headmaster. Clearly, she had been involved with him at one point, and she must have heard of his arrival somehow, for suddenly she appeared in the churchyard and pushing through the folk around the schoolmaster, she threw the bouquet of flowers at him. And turning, she ran up the broad church steps and turned herself up at everyone, looking at them from under with a lecherous laugh. So this is really the beginning of the story. It is this moment. So they've returned to the crisis moment. There was a sudden bewildered pause, and then a young church member dashed up the stairs after Mary, and the church crowd recovered from the shock, remembering that she was crazy. But before he could reach and seize her, she had jumped down the stairs, shrieking strange laughter, and started running towards the graveyard. Just outside the gate, she turned again, repeated her act, and laughed. The young villager gave chase after her, followed by others. Mary ran like a rabbit in a mad zigzag, and whenever she saw herself at a safe distance from her pursuers, she performed her act with laughter. She ran past the graveyard, and striking the main road, she headed straight for the river. A little below where the river crossed the road, there was a high, narrow waterfall that from the churchyard looked like a gorgeous flowing of gold. Mary ran down a little track leading to the waterfall. Her pursuers stopped in the road, paralyzed by her evident intention, and they began shouting for her to stop. And watching from the churchyard, the folk began to bawl and howl. But Mary kept straight on the perilous edge of the waterfall. She halted and did her stuff again. Then with a laugh, high laugh, she went sheer over. So, point I'm making here is simple. The story actually starts at the crisis. Then it flashes back to when she was young, and all of that is shown. It returns to the crisis and continues past the crisis when Mary jumped over the waterfall and committed suicide. Fall in action, resolution. End of story. What triggered it? The return of the headmaster, who apparently she had gotten pregnant for and ended up in a bacchanal with another little girl in this class who said that that was her mister. That is the story of Crazy Mary. Please read it. But the point I'm making here, all of this, even though it's backstory, it is shown. It is not told to the audience.
Question, Miss.
Yes?
Have you shared that that story in the e-classroom for us, or?
No, Oshin, I will put it up this week. I always put up this stuff that I teach for the class that particular week. So it will go up this week. Yeah?
Yes,
it's
ma'am.
a nice story. Yeah, so that's why. So let me see, what was the point of telling you about Crazy Mary? So I was saying that even though the temptation would be, as a writer, as an author, when you're given backstory and you're given flashback, the temptation is to tell. I'm saying don't. And look at how it is done in Crazy Mary as an example of how even in flashback to show and not tell. Sometimes when you want to tell what a character looks like, there is the temptation to tell. And also when there is a temptation to tell, when you are describing what a character feels, I'm saying don't do that. Do it through action. Yeah? So I want to move very quickly to the last thing, and it is language. I'm doing this very quickly now because I want you to get into a discussion group to discuss language. I want you to active or passive voice when you're writing. Most of the time, use active voice. Just as I say, most of the time, use showing. Most of the time, use active voice. You could use the passive, but use the passive sparingly and only when you want to show that the object of the active verb becomes the subject of the passive verb. Only when you want to show something is being done to the person, the subject. So for example, in active voice is the mouse ate the cat. That's active voice. Passive voice is the mouse was eaten by the cat. When you are using passive voice, it is aided by a helping verb. Was something, it tends to be a longer sentence and it tends to be kind of weaker. It's kind of dead. It's like telling. So try to avoid passive voice, but sometimes you will need to use that voice. I don't want to go into all of this. Don't write her hair was beautiful. Instead, write about her hair bouncing or tumbling or cascading or swinging. So use in general, seek the active voice in all prose and use the passive only when the actor is unknown or you want to achieve some special effects. The verb to be is a linking verb that you tend to have to use in order to use the passive voice. It invites generalizations and distance, so try and not use it in your writing. So we started talking about Jobel. I actually want you to get into groups to do that. But let me just finish this and we'll come back to that. The issue of language and dialogue. Please use some dialogue in your language, in your writing. Dialogue has a particular function in your writing, and I actually want you to discuss some of that when you get into your groups. So let me tell you what your groups are going to be. Please take a picture of this so that you can know what groups you are in. There are some people I still don't know what you're doing. Angel, if you're here. Angel, are you here? No. Let me see who else I need to know what they're doing. Because I don't have you in a group. And that's because I don't know what you are doing yet. There were 5 people I wanted to know what you were doing. And I've only heard from Denise. So I can't find my list now. But after now. All right. So I need you to take a picture of this so you know what group you're going in. I'm going to open the breakout rooms. And I need you to take a picture of this so that you will know what you're discussing in your breakout room. You're going to discuss Jobel and America. And you're going to discuss these 5, 6 questions. It's related to what we did today. Okay. So take a picture, please.
Miss, we're not seeing it.
You're not seeing the page?
No, miss.
Why is that? So let me see. Okay. See. Share. Okay. All right. Are you seeing it now?
Yes, miss, we are.
Okay, nice. So take a picture of this. This is what I want you to go in your groups to discuss. And I'm going to tell you what groups you're in. Take a picture of this so that you will know which groups you're going into when I open the rooms. So the folklore, group 1, Yolanda, Sabrina, Scott, Risha, Ali, Mawanda, Ria, and Corinthia, group 1. Group 2, Joanna, Aya, Lakeisha, and Oshin. Group 3, Roma, Netfa, Narissa, and Nigel. Group 4, Charlene, Rachel, Latoya, Quinn, Recia, Melissa, and Denise. And group 5, Racine, Lafia, Leslie-Ann, Jeanette, Trisha, and Anne. So I'm going to open the rooms and I want you to discuss these questions.
Okay.
Yeah. Purpose of dialogue is the next thing we're going to do. All right. I'm going to stop sharing this so that I can open the breakout room. And I'm only giving you about 15 minutes for the discussion, not a lot. So breakout rooms, here it is. So you're going to choose your room based on the groups that I told you that you belong to. 5 groups. Create. I'll give you, yeah. Okay. All right, I'm opening the rooms. If you're having difficulty getting into your rooms, please let me know and I'll place you.
Miss, can you place me in room 3, please, Roma?
Okay, no problem. Room 3? Okay,
Yeah.
then anybody else? Just tell me your name and
Charlie in room 4.
who is it?
Charlie in room 4.
Charlie in room 4. Okay, I'm placing
Nigel, room 3.
Nigel, room 3.
Moenda, room 1.
No, Nigel, room 3. Who is it?
Moenda, room 1.
Okay, I placed you. Anybody else? Ria, Risha, Oshin, and Aya.
Yeah.
Room 1, please, Miss Risha Ali.
Risha, okay. Right. Anybody else?
Aya, Taliba.
Aya, where must you be?
I don't know.
Aya, what are you doing?
Contemporary short story.
Are you doing contemporary short story or creative nonfiction?
Contemporary short story.
Well, then that means you're doing.
You have her in group 2 on this list.
Okay. Thank you.
Ria, group 1.
Okay. Oh, come on, you have 2 people in group 2. Who is it? Roma,
Yes, miss.
why Roma, is that you?
Yes, it is.
But I have placed you in room 3. Why aren't you going?
I'm using my phone and I'm not sure how to do it with my phone. So I thought I would have been in 3 and I would have put the others.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I just put you in 2 because there are only 2 people in room 2 for now.
Okay.
So
Okay,
click.
that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm
So
trying to do it with my phone, so I have a little trouble today.
Okay. Because I'm seeing you, you're in
So
room 2, but
join
you're not
breakout
lighting
room,
up.
press that. Am I
Yeah.
there now?
No, I'm not seeing. No, once you're talking to me, you're not there. Because when you get into the room, I will see you lighting up
You see
green.
me.
Yeah, I
I'm
will see you
pressing
light.
join breakout room.
Right. So click that.
I just did.
Okay. Oh, you threw yourself out. Where did you go? Roma, it looks like you got thrown out. I think you left in error.